Welcome to the Mercury Center Stage podcast, where we get to know those individuals on stage and those behind the scenes. Thanks for joining us. I am Brian Ritter. I'm the Executive Director for the Mercury Chamber Orchestra. And today I'm pleased to welcome Mercury's Principal Second Violin, Oleg Sulyga. Great to have you on the podcast, Oleg.
Hi, Brian, and hello to everybody who is on the other side of the screen. I'm glad to be with you and share a few moments of this precious time on Zoom.
Well, it's so great to see you. One thing that always strikes me, and I know many in our audience, is that you communicate so incredibly well on stage. You're so expressive with your fellow musicians, but really for all of us in the audience as well. And I'm just curious where that comes from and where it's developed over the years.
Oh, Brian, that's thank you for that. One thing is to be communicating on stage with your instrument through the sounds, through what we do. Another way is to be able to speak it aloud and tell the truth, so to say. But likewise, I think just being optimistic about life, being out there and able to enjoy so many different aspects, and meet so many different people. And every time you step on stage, yes, there is some jitters here and there. Of course, it's an experience. It's something that we need to be very proficient in and deliver and bring the music to you in its best shape and form. But at the same time, it's just it's a conversation. It's sharing opinions, telling a story, and hopefully igniting that story in you and bringing that fire back to us on stage.
Well, it's certainly a trademark of yours, and it works so well with our other dynamic musicians on stage as well. And I know many enjoy watching you perform and watching you express the music, whatever it's telling us. How long have you been playing now with Mercury?
Oh my! I came to Houston for a master's degree in violin performance at the University of Houston. And shortly before that, I met with Jonathan. It's a little story that I don't know if he remembers or not, but we met at an audition and crossed paths, and we both advanced to final rounds and made acquaintances and made friends. I can say right away. We got a liking in each other and each other's ideas, and obviously we were both playing well. And then we found out we were both in Houston. He was already finished with Rice, and I was in my master's, and it took maybe a year or two for me to get situated and finish school and get established with opera and ballet and a few other organizations until we reconnected again. And with the help of Antoine and Jonathan, I was brought in and tried out to be a part of the group. It was a wild ride at first, since I haven't played much of the Baroque repertoire in the style, in the way that Antoine and Jonathan envision it and bring it to public. But since that first wild ride, it still is, and I'm still loving it to the bone.
Well, it's so great. And you mentioned Jonathan, of course, the concertmaster of Mercury. And, some of my favorite moments over the years has been both of you doing these double violin concertos. The camaraderie and the friendship and the musicality between the both of you, the expressiveness is something I know is, a highlight for so many others too. It's Mercury's 20th anniversary. I'm curious if there's been any moments that have stuck out in your mind as being particularly special and fun.
Oh, well, I think, every season, every concert has its own moments that could be written down in a book. Just, I think the experiences and different amount of rep, different amount of programming that is encompassed and covered gives you such a ability to broadly oversee the spectrum of music and its development and its growth and its transitions and life, that I cherish and treasure every one of those programs. And I probably could single out a few here and there, but I'd say that generally the camaraderie and the musicianship and the audience welcome is what is most memorable to me every time.
We'll come back and talk more about Mercury. Where did you grow up?
So basically, was born in Russia, in Moscow. Parents came from two different parts of the Soviet Union, as it was known then. My dad is from Ukraine. My mom is from Russia's closer to Moscow region, and basically born in a family of musicians. And at that time in the Soviet Union, if you had some talent and you had some skill, you can tap a rhythm, you can repeat a melody. It was basically a way for you to be brought into a music school. You had to do an exam of proficiency. And then if you're accepted, that's where hard work would start. And that was when I was 7, I joined the school, but started playing the violin and playing some piano and doing prep work probably when I was 5.5, 6 years old or so. So it's been a long process since. It never ends.
Do you remember that early, first moment where you kind of got bit by the musical bug? What was it that lit you up?
At first, those are hard steps, and I tell you, violin is not the easiest instrument to play. Just to make a first initial sound that is decent takes a long time of prep work. But I recall that one of the evenings of a class, a studio concert with my teacher, the lady that I was studying with at the school at that point, well, my dad, who was a violist, and he brought in a colleague of his, a cellist, who was a dear friend and is a dear friend still to these days, and they decided to assist some of us playing a Vivaldi concerto for, I think, 3 or 4 violins. One of those that we have played with Mercury, and we were 3 little boys and 1 young lady. We were probably 7 and 8 at that time, with white shirts and bow ties, and it was such an honor, such a pleasure to have my dad and his colleague to play and accompany us on the cello and viola. That is one of the experiences that struck a note, so to say, in musical terms with me. And from there on, I got more and more engaged into it. I think the collaborative and the communication on stage aspect of music making together with several people made it a lot more attractive and a lot more challenging in so many ways too, but it's been always one of my favorite genres is chamber music. It's to be able to play with small ensembles and small groups.
Now, so studying music through primary school, through high school, was it just a natural evolution into conservatory, or did you really have to stop and think and make a choice there? How did that all come together?
We all make choices through life, and those steps and those stages happen continuously. They never cease to exist somehow. But it wasn't as smooth of a process as it seemed. A family, we had to move since a father and his group, they got a contract overseas. When Soviet Union was falling apart, things were in dire straits and very unpredictable times. So to protect us and to be with his colleagues as a unit, as a group, they moved and signed a contract in Spain. So when I was 13, we followed him there, and I continued taking my exams back in Russia and going there 2 times a year to pass all the music exams and music proficiency classes and performance classes, while taking some basic school education in Spain, where I didn't know the language and I didn't know the people and the new culture. And So it immediately introduced me into this foreign world that I was so curious about and so eager to learn, that Spanish came in quite easily after making a few friends. So within a few months, maybe 2 or 3 months, I was already able to help parents and translate at the store or in different aspects of everyday life. And then that stage of my life finished when high school time came up, equivalent of high school time here in the US. Another colleague of my dad recommended that I submit documentation and application to a boarding arts school in California, which we did without too many expectations. I remember recording a tape in the summer during a summer festival in France, and sending in paperwork through fax, which now are non-existent. I remember those long pages, those long rolls of documents. I had no idea what was on it. It was all in English. Somebody was helping us to translate and fill them out. And sure enough, the audition went well. Tapes were accepted, documents were accepted, and I was invited to join the Idlewild Arts Academy in California and studied with a wonderful teacher, SCHMIEDER, in Los Angeles, and took lessons with a few other teachers there as well. So 16 is when I came to the States all by myself with a suitcase and a violin on the other hand. Wow. My dad gave me $400 in a pocket that was stitched and closed up. And that was the beginning of my life.
Wow.
And here we go, almost 30 years down the road, I'm still here.
So some of those teachers that you had in Los Angeles, very influential? Yes,
for sure. I spent 2.5 years at Idlewild, and we worked weekly, privately, weekly lessons. They had to drive us into Los Angeles in little minivans. It took about 3.5, 4 hours to get one way, have a lesson, and then drive back. Recitals, studio classes at the Colburn School, all very, very memorable to me. And I'm to this day very thankful and grateful to the school in California and to Mr. and Mrs. Schmieder for bringing me to US.
So from there, where was your next step?
They never ceased. The next step was college applications, and I applied to most of the respected music programs in the US, alike in Europe, and decided to stay in the States. Was accepted in most of music schools, but financially, the decision had to be made based on scholarship and funds availability. So I ended up in Dallas, Texas, at Southern Methodist, SMU, on a music scholarship, and that's where I got my bachelor's.
Fantastic. And then here to Houston
to Houston with a few little stops in between, a little bit of Paris, France, a little bit of other little stops. Yeah.
Well, so aside from making great music, what are some of your other hobbies and interests?
Oh I love things outdoors. I love everything outdoors. I enjoy biking. I enjoy skiing. So winter, summer activities. I like kayaking. Just get me out, and I'll find what to do. Mountains usually call me. A lot more than the ocean and the beach, but being so close to the beach, living in Houston, I do occasionally, we make trips out and spend half a day and enjoy that beautiful way of relaxing by the water and the sound of it and the breeze and the sun that we get plenty of here.
Now, have you always been an outdoorsman, or is this more of a recent interest developed?
I'd say since childhood. I remember myself in the Soviet times, in the Soviet Union, we all lived in big apartment block of flats, big apartment buildings. And so you made friends in the little courtyard, boys and girls who are your age or close to your age. And then your adventures started from the little courtyard. You venture into the next courtyard, and then 2 over, and then 3 over, and before you know it, you take the subway and you're somewhere in the middle of the city, or you're out in the parks and in the forests and in the woods, and of course parents are running around trying to locate and find you. This was the era with no cell phones or no way of contacting, no way of knowing. So the adventures, I think, and the nature and the woods and the parks and rivers has come from that time, from those childhood experiences.
Wow. And what was it like growing up in the Soviet Union?
You know, in a sense, life was very, very safe. At least it seemed to me as a child. It was quite predictable. You knew that if you did well and had good grades and followed the steps, you would be guaranteed almost a job or a position, and it would feed you, it would feed your family, and you would be comfortable. You wouldn't have to worry and think of anything. However, of course, behind this facade, there was so many other factors that that were not quite what we perceived them as we saw them. So when it fell apart and crumbled into pieces in 89 and 90, it was a shock, I think, for all of us, for a lot of us, young and old, and lives changed almost immediately, almost overnight. And I love those times. I treasure and cherish those times and the places and the people. But it seemed that even though a lot of it stayed, it doesn't seem the same place anymore to me. Yeah. It's that place called childhood.
And now it's time for a segment called Favorite Five. So here we go.
Oh my.
And I'll start off by asking you, what's your favorite book?
Wow, that's quite a broad general range of information there, but something that maybe comes to mind, besides all the classics and Russian literature classics that I try to read in native language and then English lit, a book that struck a key with me is a book by Krakauer. It's called Into Thin Air. Oh, yeah. And it came at the right time when I was a young adult and looking for adventure, and this deals with an expedition that is ascending Mount Everest, and it was quite a tragic one. So I think it struck a very special personal note, how great adventures and great achievements could be so dangerous and deadly and meaningful in so many ways. That I still, from time to time, it's a book that's still in my library collection on the shelves, and once in a while you pull out and get a chapter and look through it and indulge.
Yeah, what a great recommendation. I read that a few years ago too, and the vividness of his writing and of that very fateful adventure. I was just blew me away as well. I mean, just how horrifying it was. Let me ask you what your favorite beverage is.
Ooh, well, coming from Russia. Actually, with the abundance and with the variety of the things that we have at our fingertips and disposal here in the States, a country of plenty, I really enjoy a good, nice espresso coffee. So there's any chance I can find a good coffee shop with really good beans and somebody who really knows how to make their espressos, I am their customer for life.
Well, I guess a sub question to that then is, do you have a recommendation of a favorite coffee shop here in Houston?
I have a favorite place. In fact, it's between my house and our favorite Wardham Center downtown, where a lot of our concerts take place. And along the Washington Street, there is a shop called Catalina Coffee.
Oh, yes.
And it's one of my favorite go-to stops before we get into a long rehearsal or into a long performance.
Yeah, fantastic. I've always had great coffee there myself. Yeah, terrific cappuccinos. So
for sure. And Max, the owner, is a personal friend as well, and I always fancy a conversation with him about beans, about his new finds, and it's always a fun environment where you again meet so many interesting people in people from Houston and outside.
How about a favorite movie or television series?
Lately, I've been struggling with full-fledged films. Sometimes just not enough time to do the entire thing. Series, a few here and there, but something that comes to mind from my probably old days in Spain and Spanish speaking. And there's a director called Pedro Almodovar, and he has some incredible life stories to tell. And some of the films are Talk to Her, if those names might sound familiar to any of you. That's called Habla con ella, Talk to Her, or Volver, or Women on the Border of Nervous Breakdown. Yeah. That's another interesting film. He's quite eccentric. These are, it's just something that I enjoy seeing once in a while, over and over, just because of his original style and incredible acting and incredible cast that he is able to gather.
I'll check them out. How about favorite travel destination?
Oh, I would say favorite travel destination, always the one that you haven't been to yet. And
always something to look forward to.
There's still a few places and on the map that I would like to visit at some point. But lately, Lena and myself, we have been looking into doing at least 1 or 2 national parks every year. Ah. And those trips have been very, very valuable and treasurable to me. And we've done quite well so far. We've accomplished a lot, and a lot of the West Coast and the East Coast and all in between. And from what I understand, you just have been into the Big Bend area yourself.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal experience. I'm so glad. I can't wait to get back. But I have a sub question for you here too. Which one is your favorite so far? Oh,
I think Yellowstone definitely leaves an impression because of its vast space and such changes, such different characters. But I have to say that Banff and Jasper in Canada also have been just breathtaking.
Yeah, both of those high on my list. Glacier National Park for me is it's up there, so probably some similar scenery to those others, but that Going to the Sun Road is nothing like it. So how about your favorite classical music recording?
Oh my.
I know it's an impossible question.
This is worse than the favorite book.
Yeah.
There are so many, and so many different genres, and so many different chamber recordings and solo violin recordings. Something off the beaten path for our dear listeners. and it captivated me when I was living in Paris. I ran into one of those big mega stores of recordings and music. It's called Virgin, where they used to sell CDs, which we don't even know what these are these days. And I was a young violinist wandering the city and exploring, and always going to the shop to see what new recordings would come up. And this was the year when a Hungarian violinist, ROBY LAKATOS, recorded one of his first, let's say, large commercially available albums on Deutsche Grammophon, and it was called La Bohème, like the opera that we all know, the Bohème.
Yeah.
And he is a phenomenal gypsy style violinist with such a fine taste and a phenomenal technique and gorgeous sound. And in that album, he was playing with 4 of his other colleagues. It's a combo, it's like a jazz combo. And I remember walking in, seeing that album, knowing of him, but I've never heard him play until then. And they had a sample CD on those stations where you could walk up and you could hear the sample CDs featured for that week. And it was one of those. And I remember putting the headphones and pushing the play button, and at that point forgetting where I was going, if I needed to be at a certain time, if I was late, early, it didn't matter. I listened to the full CD, and then I pushed play again, and I listened to the full CD again.
Wow.
And then I just went straight to the register and bought the disc right there and right then. So I just had to own it.
Did you wear it out yet?
It's still with me. It has been now transferred to a digital format. But for your indulgent and experienced, dear friends, ROBY LAKATOS, you can find him on YouTube or in any other places, and he is quite a character.
Well, there we go. There's our favorite 5 by Oleg. Thanks so much for your recommendations. So as we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about what music has been like or has meant to you during this very, very unusual time that all of us are living through and trying to anticipate going forward.
Oh my! You're making it easier and easier as we go along. As we see things progress and as we see things develop, and every day is a new turn, every day is a new discovery. We are fighting to keep it alive, to keep this going. We hope that this is just temporarily. We want to have our musical lives back as they were on stage with you, the audience, in the concert hall, because it's a symbiotic relationship. We don't exist one without the other. We feed off of each other. We need each other. With all our hopes to be back at whatever time and whenever we will be able to do so safely, of course, for everybody. The virtual scene helps a great deal, being able to record, being able to have a live stream of a performance. And I really appreciate that technology that can bring us together. But for me, it's not the same.
Sure.
For me, it has to be personal. It has to be at that one very moment. It has to be in concert hall or in a smaller chamber space, but it has to be live. Yeah. So I can't wait until we all meet together on stage, in the audience, in conversation, and most important, in musical conversation with my musician colleagues and you audiences.
Well, we just so much appreciate you, Oleg, and your leadership in the orchestra, and we just can't wait to see you back on stage with all of your wonderful colleagues playing live. We'll look for that day. It won't be tomorrow, but it will be soon, and we will be back, and we can't wait. So I really thank you so much for your time today to chat with us, and very much enjoyed our conversation together.
Thank you, Brian, and our best regards to all the staff and office members of Mercury, and to all our audiences and our friends and supporters. Until very, very soon, I'm sure.
Yes. Thank you, Oleg.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Oleg, for the conversation today, and thanks for tuning in to the Mercury Center Stage podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can leave your comments on our website. We'll be back again soon. Until then, keep listening to great music.